name was before. I guess we should not say it because maybe that would violate some policy.
It's a dead name.
But that's crazy.
Why is it?
I don't understand.
Why is that any crazier than people change their name? Call me this. Call me this. I prefer to be called.
Right, but to not even be allowed to acknowledge that you used to have a different name.
What do you need to be able to acknowledge that for? How are you suffering? Where's your harm? Where's your pleasure?
Yeah, this is why I'm doing this live. I've seen this already, but okay, folks, this shit is get over yourself. This is the most hypocritical shit I've ever seen in my life. Well, this isn't, but this whole thing with this, you're talking about dead naming. I didn't even know that was a term. You see, when I grew up, it was a former name. It was a different name. It was just something somebody else called you, or you had a nickname, or you legally changed your name. But apparently, because Elliot Page, who I guess I'm going to assume legally changed their name. I'm not even sure what the frickin' pronoun is supposed to be called. I'm just going to refer to her as her. And if that gets me fucked, so be it. I don't know any other way. All right, that's the confusing part right there. You can't acknowledge that the person changed their name because they changed their name because they're transgender. So let's go through this.
That person lived as a different person for a long time, decades. And so to say that suddenly we all have to pretend like those decades didn't exist and that person wasn't that person for those decades.
You're not forcing me to pretend that. You just can't.
I understand.
You just can't say it out loud?
No, you can talk.
Right.
Why are we pretending?
Yeah, see, key right there. Nobody's forcing you, just don't talk about it. Well, that's called forcing. I mean, that's what it is. No. You don't have to agree with it. Just don't ever talk about it. Just, shut up. Toe the line. It's fucking bullshit. And look at them. Look at the facial difference. This is what I'm going to go off of here. I have no poker skills whatsoever. What I do know is nonverbals, because I wear my nonverbals on my sleeve. People can read me like a book. My nonverbals will scream louder. I can read this very, very well. Right now, just look at these three people. All right, you have this guy here. He's smiling. She's smiling. She is not. She is just like, and notice, her eyes are even slightly closed more. She is not happy that these people think this way. And she wants to force them to think the way she does. And if they don't, they need to shut up because it offends the other party. However, I'm going to be honest. If one of them made a comment about her, she would lose her shit and say, you don't know what I'm talking about because you ain't experienced what I've done. Well, no offense, lady, but I doubt you've experienced what the other person's done. I don't understand this. I really do not understand why this is a big deal. Because, okay, somebody had a former name. They changed it. Okay, fine. If they've had that name a long time, it's going to take time for people to get used to it. It's not like in the Umbrella Academy where her character, the character of Viana is now Victor. Okay, and everybody's just all accepting it, which I call 100% bullshit. And I'm talking from personal experience with my family. So please, I've got a little skin in this game. Actually, I got a lot of skin in this game. So, yeah, we're going to talk about it. This is the thing.
Like, that is what's happening here. It's very simple.
That is what's happening.
There's a trans man now, Elliot Page. That is their name. That is the name that they go by.
I said
their dead
name,
name
I
is their
said
dead.
Elliot Page.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Their dead
Right.
name is their dead name. They don't go by by that anymore. They find
What is with this harkening about the dead name? I don't understand this. And I'm going to get a little bit into that because, look, we had family members. I grew up in a family where my grandmother's brother, my great uncle, we always called him James. I always called him Uncle James. Everybody I knew called him Uncle James. My dad called him that. My mother called him that. My grandmother called him that. My grandfather called it. Everybody called him that in that part of the family. Everybody else, which I didn't realize till later, called him Ronell. I had to figure, and at some point I had to ask the question. I said, who's Ronell? I don't know who this is. Oh, that's your Uncle James. I'm like, why do some of you call him Ronell and some of us call him Uncle James? You know what the funny thing was? Nobody had an answer. Nobody knew. Nobody had a fucking clue why. Here's the thing. My uncle, who is in a hospital, one of those hospitals for people with Alzheimer's now, he never had a problem with it. He just answered to both. I don't know why. I don't know why he preferred going by Ronell. Nobody ever told me. I just accepted and was able to figure out, oh, this is who they're talking about. And that's the thing. How am I supposed to explain if I talk about Juno or the X-Men movies? What am I supposed to say? Oh yeah, Elliot Page did a great job as a female, as Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat, or the whole thing in Juno was just fantastic. It's like, how am I supposed to talk about that? Because, if we're gonna bitch about dead naming, you're gonna have to go into the fact that then every freaking thing is gonna have to change. Every note, every title that has, or every casting that has Ellen Page in it needs to be taken out. Because if it's not, then they're promoting the dead name. And you're going to have to remove any time she got an award and dub it with Elliot.
find it dehumanizing or diminishing to their person and to be called that. And that is what it is. It's not uncommon. People change their names all the time and we use the different names that they...
You're right. People do change their name all the time. People also go by nicknames. Some people go by their middle names. Some people go by an abbreviation.
that they go by.
Right. And if somebody goes, well, who's that? I go, oh, they used to be X. I would fill them in. And you can't do that on social media because of this policy.
Well, this whole thing came about because Jordan, I guess some guy named Jordan Peterson, he's a doctor. I guess he did this and he got kicked off Twitter. And then all of a sudden you started seeing hashtags come up. And that'll come up in a minute.
Did you get banned for calling Prince even after he changed his name to a symbol?
I mean, that's the same.
Yeah, this is the part, really. Of course it's not the same. It's always not the same.
We are comparing apples and vegetables because this is a trans person. We've explained this. The name,
Yep, there you go. Right there. Right there. Because this is a protected class. So we've got to do everything we can to shame anybody who, whatever, doesn't do it.
Dead name reflects a person, an identity they do not recognize. They find it psychologically harmful to be seen in that way. They've moved on.
I mean, maybe he felt like being called Prince was...
Yeah, see, she doesn't like that. She doesn't like the fact that this lady here is comparing that to saying, hey, maybe Prince that way. Hey, you know what? I did some research. I like John Mellencamp. I couldn't figure why a lot of his older songs had John Cougar or then John Cougar Mellencamp and then John Mellencamp. And then I found out why. He didn't get a choice in that. The studio actually gave him the name John Cougar because they thought Mellencamp wouldn't sell. And he didn't get a choice in it. And he had to fight to get his name in there. It's kind of the same with Dwayne Johnson. Remember, he had to be portrayed as The Rock because that's what people knew him by. Nobody knew him by that. He didn't like it. So over time, it slowly went into place. It went from The Rock to Dwayne The Rock Johnson to now it's just Dwayne Johnson. It takes time for people to catch up with what you want to be called.
I mean,
I just like it. Go ahead. Listen. Go ahead. Go for it smartly. Go.
Yeah, see her condescending attitude. I mean, she's got just the press lit. She's got her lips closed. She's got her lip. The lady in the center's got her lips closed because, she's being attacked. The lady on the left here, or on the right on my side here, she could care less. She is pissed. They are wrong, and nothing they say is going to matter.
I think it's a really weird, especially for a famous person, a person of some notable public significance, to be formally disallowed from talking about some public, and no, we're not saying this is some embarrassing secret.
Embarrassing. Oh, it's embarrassing. Who's it embarrassing for? Seems like it's embarrassing for you.
And we're trying to spare them from. No, this is a public. This person was in movies. Was under this name.
It's
under
obviously
this
very.
identity.
Let's not listen. For the dad name to trend, for something to trend, people have to.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. What's really funny is how this all came about. Like I said, the whole Peterson thing. You know why it trended? Because people started protesting about it, and they did it on Facebook.
Be using it massively. It has to be being discussed. Let's not act like we don't know where that comes from. If we know that this is now a trans person, they go by Elliot Page, and there are a large amount of people calling them by their dead name, so much so that it trends. There is a deliberacy in there meant to offend this person because they do not go by that anymore. I don't know what is this being.
You don't know why it's going on? Well, because of people like you. Because of people like you. Because you're trying to put your shoe on their necks. And you're trying to do it now, and they're not taking it. And now they're going from, when you look at this, they're going from, they were having a good time. Things were light. Now it's kind of like, okay, you know what? We know where this is going. It ain't worth it, but we're just going to state our case and let people like us decide.
Anyone was continuing to use it and not using the new name just to be, provocative or mean-spirited, right? I guess I would use the.
Yeah, key thing is he's saying, hey, I'm going to respect you. Yeah, I'm going to respect you, but damn, take a chill pill. You're kind of overblowing it.
Name the person wants to use now, and I would recognize their gender identity now. I do not think we should be for a public person, for someone who is well known to the people, for sake of clarity or for sake of biography, to acknowledge that they used to have a different name.
You can acknowledge.
Yeah, see, key thing is he's saying, hey, they had a different name. We're just acknowledging they had it, and we're trying to talk about it. But that's taboo now. Now you can't talk about it.
Do you see how we sat here and we had this whole discussion? We acknowledged that they used to have a different name. We acknowledged that they had this life before that, but we never called them the name.
Well,
no, actually, you didn't. You acknowledged it, but the fact that they're willing to talk about it and you want them to never mention this. See, this is the key thing. She doesn't want them to mention this. She doesn't want anybody to mention Elliot Page used to go by Ellen Page, and that name is on movies. And that is actually what people refer to them as, because that's their name. That was their name at the time. Now that it's a bad thing, what are you going to do? You're going to go back and delete everything, dub it, edit it?
That's towing around.
That's simple. You're not allowed. We had the whole conversation. Yes. What is the problem with that? You're not allowed to call somebody by a name that they don't go by anymore. Big deal. No, it's not allowed.
See, she's dead on. We should not be told we're not allowed. Well, you're going to hurt somebody else's feelings. Well, you're pissing me off. But remember, my feelings don't matter. Remember, the only person's feelings who matter here is the host. The other two, their feelings don't matter because she doesn't agree with them.
We shouldn't be not allowed to
Oh,
say what a person was
Yeah.
for decades.
God,
Yeah,
God
otherwise
forbid
we
you
get
not be
banned.
allowed to call somebody by something they don't want to go by anymore, because
Right.
your
Otherwise,
right to call them what you want
If
to call them.
If Donald Trump decided he just wanted to be called the greatest of all time, we would just move over to that. He'd be like, well, we gotta respect his wishes.
It's not the same.
Gotta respect his wishes.
Yeah, see, exactly that. That I thought was funny. And I don't know how this young guy came up with that off the top of his head, but that was just funny. That cracked me up. Because well, I don't recall a lot of people calling. Well, look, we got Nancy Pelosi. She can't even say Donald Trump's name. It's the former guy or the guy who maybe occupied the, or Orange Man Bad or blah blah blah. Yeah, amazingly, nobody cares about other people when you insult them, but yet getting the name wrong or getting used to it or somebody just not accepting it, that's bad. Well, you know what? That's life.
Continuously, once y'all are clearly invested in pretending like y'all don't understand the significance.
No, I understand it. I
did. So go ahead. I've already explained it.
You explained. You didn't. Yeah, you explained basically very simply. Shut the fuck up. Don't talk about it. Don't acknowledge that this person was ever somebody else. Don't acknowledge that. Don't accept it. You can't talk about who they were before because they don't want to hear about it. Yeah, sounds like a lot of my family members. Sometimes. It bugs the shit out of me, this kind of stuff. And I do have experience in this. I do have experience with family members changing their names. I have family members who have changed their identities from one pronoun to another. And they're way older than Elliot Page. So I don't want to hear it. Okay? We have family members who want to go by certain names. Fine. We have family members who want to be identified a certain way. Fine. Here's the difference, though. I give a shit about them. I would actually be respectful about this. But the problem is, I think most people would be respectful about it if y'all on the other camp would shut the fuck up, make it a big deal out of this. Because here's the thing. You're the ones making the big deal out of it. Not us. We don't have time for this. But for some reason, well, shit, I thought I was going to get through the whole thing without a cough. But yeah, that's just, it's just absolute bullshit. Your dead name is basically talking about George Carlin. Remember when he said hyphenating a name? It was like hyphenating a name. Feminists think hyphenating the name is a radical act. It's not. Castrating a man with a rusty Coke can is that kind of act. Hyphenating name is pretentious bullshit. That's what he said. But getting butthurt about this, the reason why this keeps going is because y'all make such a big deal out of it. If you shut the hell up, we wouldn't have this problem. Because let those small people bitch, mope, and complain. If they're really malicious about it, okay. But if you're going to go there and stamp everybody because you think they're all in the same camp, well, what do you think we're going to do to you? We're only going to get pushed back so far. Take it for what it's worth. Do what you want. But I'm just saying, you can't have it both ways. Remember how she says, the lady in the middle mentioned Prince. The lady in the middle and the gentleman said something about Donald Trump changing the name. And you're like, it's always different. And it's only different because this person is a trans. That's it. And I remember this trend in the 90s. I remember this in the 80s and 90s, in the early 2000s. Once this became mainstream and acceptable, the key thing was you were never allowed to talk about it. You were never allowed to question it. You were never allowed to say, you were supposed to shut up and stay your place. You weren't allowed to criticize the person. And I'm going all the way back to school days because they were either gay, bi, lesbian. You weren't allowed to criticize. And we're right back into it. Now it's like, remember, if you're on a certain class, you cannot criticize. Otherwise, you're an istophobe. You're some kind of piece of crap. You're a worthless human being. And that is not on us. That is on people like this lady here who's hosting this, trying to shame these people and make them do what she wants. That's not acceptance. That's control.